You're listening to the Financial Source podcast on YouTube.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Source podcast. Global markets are really caught in a powerful tug of war right now.
They are stuck between this accelerating realignment of global trade and just, soaring geopolitical risk centered squarely on Iran.
And that tension is so critical because investors are trying to price in all these potential policy shifts. We're talking new tariffs, major trade deals.
While also managing the intense political pressure that's currently facing key institutions like the Federal Reserve.
So today, we're analyzing those key trade developments, specifically the nearing tariff-cutting deal with Taiwan, but also the new United States tariff threats targeting countries doing business with Tehran.
And we'll also drill down into foreign exchange, looking at why the Japanese yen reversed so sharply, touching near 158.14 against the dollar, despite some really explicit intervention warnings.
Plus, we dive into commodities. We'll try to figure out why gold is holding so comfortably near its record highs, supported by all this anxiety and analyst targets now rising toward, $5,000 an ounce.
We will frame what these dynamics mean for the cautious tone in United States equities and how diplomacy or disruption might set the market's direction. Let's unpack it.
We really have to start where that risk premium is highest, and right now, that is absolutely Iran. Our conversation has to begin with the complex political and military situation there. The market is clearly identifying it as the main source of global volatility.
It's an incredibly tense backdrop. And what's so fascinating is the duality of the White House's strategy. It feels like they're holding both a stick and a carrot at the highest level.
How so?
Well, we know the United States president has been briefed on a whole range of options against Iran. Military covert options.
Right.
And the reports suggest he's leaning towards strikes, to punish the regime for killing protesters.
So airstrikes are confirmed as an option they're considering. That shows a serious willingness to use force.
Exactly. But at the same time, you have senior aides pushing hard for diplomacy.
Yeah.
And Washington is actually weighing Iranian proposals for negotiations right now.
It's almost a good cop, bad cop scenario playing out on the world stage.
It is. And Iran, for its part, is saying the situation is under control and that they have ongoing communication with United States officials.
But the actions from other partners tell a different story, don't they? The European Union is getting ready to impose new, heavy sanctions on Tehran.
And this is crucial. We have confirmation that Iran shipped billions of dollars worth of missiles to Russia.
Which just deepens that military connection and immediately amplifies the risk calculation for the U.S. and for Europe.
It's gotten so high that the United States has urged dual United States-Iranian citizens to leave Iran immediately.
Wow.
So you have this mix of high-level military options, active diplomatic talks, and these stark warnings. It keeps the market's risk premium severely elevated.
And this isn't all happening in a vacuum. If we look at the broader global security picture, tension is escalating elsewhere, too.
Eastern Europe.
Right. Russian drones just struck 2 foreign-flagged vessels near Ukraine's port of Kornomorsk. That's a direct hit on global trade and shipping risk.
And Kyiv is reporting fresh ballistic missile attacks on the capital. It all adds to this geopolitical burden the market is carrying.
You also can't forget the instability in key energy areas like Venezuela.
No, absolutely not. Reports are showing unsanctioned supertankers leaving Venezuelan waters with crude. It's a sort of shadow market operating outside official channels.
Even as the White House continues seizing tankers that operate without U.S. permission.
It's a very active geopolitical chessboard.
Yeah.
On the diplomatic side, the president is set to meet with opposition leader Maria Corina Machado this week. So it's affecting everything from risk pricing to commodity flows.
Okay, let's pause on that geopolitical fracturing for a moment, because it feeds directly into what might be the most conflicting theme in finance right now, which is U.S. trade policy.
It's completely contradictory in some ways.
Exactly. The U.S. is trying to secure supply lines by cutting tariffs in one place, while threatening to break trade routes with punitive tariffs somewhere else.
This is that strategic dilemma. So you have track one, which is this proactive security push focused on technology.
The Taiwan deal.
The Taiwan deal. Washington is getting very close to a tariff-cutting trade deal there. But this isn't just some friendly gesture. It is laser-focused on securing the global supply of semiconductors.
And the commitment here is immense. I mean, it really proves this is a national security play disguised as a trade deal.
How so?
The deal includes a commitment from Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC, to significantly expand U.S. manufacturing. We're talking plans for at least 5 more facilities in Arizona.
Which is a major diversification of risk away from the Taiwanese Strait for one of the most critical technologies in the world.
Now, contrast that strategic move with Track 2.
The new threat aimed at Iran.
Exactly. The United States president warned that any country doing business with Iran is going to face a new 25% tariff on all trade with the United States.
That is a dramatic escalation. It's essentially using trade as a weapon to force major trading partners, including allies, to completely sever their economic ties with Tehran.
It puts them in an impossible position, right? You have to choose. Trade with Washington or maintain your existing relationships with Tehran.
And it drew immediate criticism from Beijing, which, reiterated its opposition to what it calls long-arm jurisdiction.
Which is basically the U.S. trying to extend its domestic laws to govern companies and nations outside its borders.
Precisely. The takeaway isn't just that trade is messy. It's that the U.S. is deliberately forcing a geopolitical choice, which fundamentally redraws the economic map.
And this focus on securing critical supply chains, it isn't just about semiconductors.
Not at all. Japanese and United States officials have been in detailed talks to secure rare earth supply chains. They've even floated the idea of setting a price floor to incentivize production outside of the current dominant suppliers.
So this all fits into this idea of de-risking rather than a complete decoupling.
Right. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said he's optimistic that nations will pursue prudent de-risking. Because, the global economy can't really survive a complete fracture.
But the realignment is truly global. It's not just U.S.-centric. For instance, India is in the final stages of negotiating a massive free trade agreement with the European Union.
And those talks are planned to wrap up next week. It just shows that the map of global commerce is being actively rebuilt as we speak.
In all of this turmoil, this geopolitical fracturing, it feeds directly into the currency markets.
Where instability is just rampant.
Yeah.
And the political pressure is, it's palpable.
It really is. The United States dollar is trying to find its footing again, grinding back toward that 99 level after some recent weakness.
And that weakness was explicitly linked to concerns over the independence of the Federal Reserve. It just shows how deeply politics is now integrated into currency pricing.
The volatility around the Japanese yen this week is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. The dollar initially weakened against the yen after Japan's finance minister said that United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent shares his concerns over the weak yen.
Which is a clear, coordinated verbal signal that intervention is still a credible threat.
A very credible threat. Yet, the yen immediately reversed course. It spiked back toward weakness, touching near 158.50 against the dollar.
So why is the market choosing to ignore this explicit, coordinated warning from two of the world's most powerful finance officials? What's driving that yen weakness?
It seems to be domestic political drama. The driver was speculation that Prime Minister Takaichi might dissolve parliament and call snap elections.
Wow. So the market is saying that it trusts immediate political instability more than it trusts explicit central bank rhetoric.
That's a powerful way to put it, yes. The thinking is that political uncertainty in Japan creates policy paralysis, which makes credible, coordinated intervention less likely in the near term.
So investors are betting that political risk is just a stronger, more immediate force than any G7 agreement.
And we're seeing that dominance of macro drivers across the board. The euro is just drifting lower as everyone waits for the United States Consumer Price Index report.
And sterling is largely unchanged, even though we saw softer retail sales data in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, local data is just taking a back seat to the big macro picture and Federal Reserve expectations.
Interestingly, the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar are still relative outperformers.
They are. They're continuing to track the moves in precious metals, which signals a risk appetite that's tied to rising asset prices, not just currencies.
We also saw weakness in the offshore yuan after a weaker than expected daily fixing from the People's Bank of China. Can you just quickly clarify for our listeners what the daily fixing is?
Sure. The daily fixing is the official target the People's Bank of China sets for the onshore exchange rate each day. When they set that target lower than the market expects, it's a clear signal.
A signal that they're comfortable letting the currency weaken a bit.
Exactly. It's typically done to support Chinese exports, but it puts pressure on the offshore yuan and reinforces this idea that monetary policy tools are being actively used to manage trade.
All this instability then feeds directly into the equity markets. United States equities, they only managed a modest rebound.
Yeah, the S&P 500 gained a bit, but those gains were severely restrained. Investors are just deeply focused on the political pressure around the Federal Reserve, the trade uncertainty, all the risks we've discussed.
And financial stocks, in particular, remain under pressure.
They do, especially after the president renewed his calls to cap credit card fees. It just keeps the broader market pretty cautious ahead of that key inflation data.
Given all this tension, it's really no surprise where investors are choosing to park their capital. Gold. It remains the standout performer, trading comfortably near record territory after surging to a fresh all-time high above $4,630 an ounce earlier this week.
It's acting as the ultimate barometer of this entire risk environment. And the move is being driven by this powerful confluence of factors. You've got the geopolitical anxiety from Iran.
The concerns over the independence of the Federal Reserve.
Right, which erodes confidence in fiat currency. And then there's the strategic positioning ahead of that inflation report.
And this confidence in gold, it's not just nervous retail traders. We're seeing some truly astonishing institutional predictions.
They are astonishing. CCTO, for example, raised its 3-month price target for gold to $5,000 an ounce. And silver to $100 an ounce.
$5,000? I mean, that's an enormous number. It's almost $1,000 above the recent high.
We're not talking about marginal gains here. This is an institutional belief that this confluence of risk isn't just a fleeting moment. It's the new, sustained reality, driving capital into precious metals.
Now, contrast that with the energy market. Oil prices seem to be trapped.
They're in pretty tight ranges, yeah. We saw some initial support after the reports that the United States president had been briefed on military options against Iran.
Implying potential supply disruption.
But the prices failed to hold those gains.
Yeah.
The oil market is effectively saying, show me the action. It seems reluctant to price in a major disruption without something concrete happening.
So it's sensitive but not panicked yet.
Exactly. It's holding in those tight ranges. What about base metals? Copper is still resilient, right? Holding above $13,000 per ton.
It is, but the focus is starting to shift. Markets are watching to see if industrial demand will soften in 2026 after this recent price surge.
But there are still immediate supply risks underpinning the price.
There are, specifically stalled talks at Chile's Manto Verde copper mine, where a strike continues to impact production. So it's a market that's balancing future demand concerns against these very immediate supply constraints.
So if we pull this all together, we're seeing two major dynamics. You have the immediate geopolitical flashpoints like Iran, and the pressure on the Federal Reserve causing this sharp volatility.
But at the same time, the very foundations of global trade are being completely rebuilt through these massive multi-year deals, like the ones with Taiwan and the India-European Union agreement.
Which really raises an important question for you, the listener, to think about. Will the acceleration of this trade realignment through these new deals and supply chain security efforts ultimately prove to be a greater long-term market influence than the immediate volatility caused by all this political pressure and these geopolitical flashpoints?
That's the balance we're all navigating right now. It proves this is a market that remains highly alert, definitely not complacent.
That's it for today's deep look at geopolitics, trade, and the major market moves shaping the global economy. Thank you for being here with us.
We appreciate you tuning in. Join us again soon for another edition of the Financial Source Podcast.